We're all spiritual beings having a human experience. That means we also go through cycles. I brought a guest onto the podcast today to talk about the themes of the chakras right now and what is showing up to be released. So we're going to be talking about the three most common block chakras and some signs and symptoms that you have one. But also the great news in this episode is Michelle Leigh is giving you some tips to help release them. So stay tuned. Welcome to Spiritual and Ambitious. I'm your host, Whitney McNeill. I'm a certified medium and spiritual teacher, and I help spiritual and ambitious souls just like you live your life purpose through your career and attract abundance by connecting into your intuition and spirit guides. Let's get spiritual and ambitious. Welcome to another episode of the Spiritual and Ambitious podcast. I have an exciting guest today, and she's going to be talking about chakras and the themes that she has been seeing and where we can heal. And so there's more to this. Michelle is a Reiki practitioner, an intuitive reader, and integrated energy alignment practitioner. She looks to the chakras to help guide messages for her clients. And they are, after all, the energetic pathways of the body, and our bodies store a lot that we may not realize. So together with spirit guides, she works to clear and align her clients' chakras as she shares any intuitive messages that arise. Her mission is to bring in the energy that is for the highest well-being while clearing out what no longer serves her clients. So let's welcome Michelle Leigh to the podcast.
Thank you, Whitney. It's so exciting and such an honor to be here. I appreciate you taking the time today.
Thanks for being here. I really think that we need to talk about energy alignment and the chakras, because when I used to do Reiki sessions, I would see themes that would pop up in the collective. So I would attract clients that tended to have the same issues or similar issues. And as a whole, about where we are as a collective, there are certain blockages that are wanting to be released right now. And while each person is unique and different, it is really helpful for us to have this conversation for everybody listening, because it brings more awareness to where our energy might be, and we can recognize more of the themes. So thank you for doing what you do. And by the way, everybody listening, Michelle does chakra readings and balancing here at Messenger of Spirit. But I'd love for you to tell everybody a little bit about how you got into this and share a little bit more about your story before we get started.
Absolutely. So I think it started a while ago in terms when I was younger and from an intuitive perspective. And I didn't quite know or understand that I was intuitive. And I was going to school for a degree in psychology, and I was just always connecting with people and overall. And while I didn't take that path professionally, it always carried and stayed with me from an intuitive perspective. And years ago, I was introduced to Reiki, and I was also introduced to yourself and began working with you. And then when I came home from a trip to Arizona, I had a lot of life upheaval. And I got introduced to Reiki, and Reiki helped me personally to work through grief. I had done a lot of the hard work years past for the grief, but I knew on my soul and energetic level, there were blocks, there were things that needed to be moved and cleared out. And so I started working with a Reiki practitioner and mentor as a client. And then I realized this is amazing. This is the chakras, the Reiki overall. How can I do this for myself in between? I call it an energetic hygiene. How can I care for myself on that? So I decided to go for my Reiki 1 attunement. And then I thought, I got to share this with the world. There's so much to offer here. And then I went for my second, and I've been growing since then. And it's pretty amazing because Reiki, again, helped me move through things that I didn't realize were stuck. I thought I did all the hard work, but I didn't realize in my crown, my connection was blocked. I didn't realize in my root, I wasn't grounding. I didn't realize in my solar plexus that I had that slump and I just wasn't showing, because when you're dealing with grief or when you're dealing with a lot in life, sometimes it's hard to stand up straight and to show all that you are. So that's how I got into it. It was my own personal journey, and it helped me tremendously. And knowing that it helped me, I knew and wanted to help others with it.
That's such a great journey. And also, I know that you're a more logical person as well as an intuitive.
Yes.
So I have to ask this for everybody listening out there. And I know for myself and my own experience, how did you really go, oh my gosh, the chakras, the energy, like this stuff is really real? Coming from a place where maybe you were a little bit more analytical or logical, how did that kind of come in where you said, I'm going to try this, or no, this is really working for me? Like, what came up for you?
The mind-body connection is what came up. And that mind-body connection of how I felt and the words. So we'll talk a little bit later about affirmations and the chakras and so forth. But the way I spoke to myself, the way I felt, all of that connection had a factor. I am very analytical. I did look at it from that angle of how could this be, but I connected in with my body and connected in with the trust, and that's just that inner knowing. And that really helped me. And there is different energetic, scientific explanations, things and overall, and we're all made up of energy. So how could there not be energetic wheels? Chakra is Sanskrit for wheel or circle. How can we not have that in our body and it running through us? The other thing is experience. When I'd walk into places or I'd be around people and you felt something so different. And while my analytical brain couldn't always put a number or a factor on it, I trusted the feeling. I trusted my body and just having that knowing. And so just leaning into that has really helped too.
Yeah. And the results, right?
Yes.
Like seeing and knowing I feel lighter, I'm feeling better, or I intended for this to change and I was balancing this chakra and now this part of my life is coming up where I'm now releasing, or now this is moving into alignment. For me, I really think I needed a slap in the face, energetically speaking, like this really works kind of thing. So going through an intense healing journey as a logical person too, or more analytical, I needed that. This really works. And before this episode, Michelle and I were just talking about my memory of when I first became acquainted with Reiki years and years ago, where I had this chronic fatigue. I was tired. Basically, the doctors just didn't know what was wrong with me. And so I experienced Reiki for the first time, and I knew there was more behind it. And I kept going back and back. And after just 3 days, I went on a hike in the desert. And this is what Michelle helps people with, just unblocking and helping you release. And there's just so many benefits. So can you explain a little bit about what the chakras are and give like an overview so people can really understand when we're starting to focus in on the specific ones?
Absolutely. So just a little bit of an overview. As I mentioned a moment ago, chakra is a Sanskrit word for wheel or circle. And it's an energetic wheel in the body. And there's 7 main chakras. And those are the main chakras that as we do an energy balance or chakra reading that we work with. And I'll start from the bottom up. So I start from the root that's at the base area, on the base of the spinal cord. It's associated with the color red. It's a sense of security. A lot of times when we say ground in, you're grounding in with your root, your feet really at that base. Then we come up to our sacral chakra associated with the color orange. And the sacral chakra is this further development of that root chakra. It's a little bit about that furthering your self-expression and just overall that creativity zone. A lot of times when I'm working with people, we talk a lot about that creative zone. Then we come up to the solar plexus. And the solar plexus is all about how we're our self-power, our sovereignty, our overall associated with the color yellow. And then we come up to the heart chakra. And often right here in the heart chakra, I often tell people and see that the heart chakra is the center. You've got 7 chakras, and that heart is right there in the middle. And how beautiful is that? Of the 7, you've got the heart in the middle, which is the heart of a lot of things. And that drives us. Then we come up to our throat. Here in the throat, this is all about speaking our truth, feeling, having clarity, confidence, communication. Up from the throat, we go to our third eye. This is that intuition right here in between the brow. And we talk a little bit about seeing and knowing and trusting that intuition. And at the top of the head, we have the crown, connecting our connection with spirituality, our connection overall. Those are the 7 main chakras.
All right. I think that was really helpful to explain to our listeners what the chakras are. And each person might have certain areas that they tend to notice they need a little bit of extra healing on or with in the chakra system. When I always was thinking about chakras, I would think about them as intersections. And I love how you said the root goes into the sacral, or the sacral is kind of an extension a little bit, because they're all connected, right? So I think sometimes we think we got to focus just on one. And when I used to teach Reiki classes, people would just want to focus on their intuitive chakras or their centers. And I would say, let's balance them all. We need to make sure that we're balancing everything.
Absolutely. And they are all connected. And that's the interesting part of it is when you're working on one, you always have to do a scan and really help to balance the other one. Some might need more attention in that particular day.
I wanted to ask you, what kind of themes are you seeing? I know each person's different, but as a general whole, what are you seeing that's coming up right now, and what chakras need more attention?
The theme I'm seeing is quite honestly a trifecta, and it's a middle of the chakra trifecta: solar plexus, heart, and throat.
Wow.
That's the theme I'm seeing. And another theme I often see is the connection of the solar plexus and the third eye. I'll come back to that in a minute. So the trifecta, where we're talking the solar plexus, the heart, and the throat, what I observe is when we're coming from our heart and we feel that we have blocked heart chakra and we can't live or express ourselves from our true, authentic heart and our heart center, our throat's going to get blocked. We're not going to really emanate and speak our truth as we would. We're going to put on a different mask. We're going to say the things that we're expected to say. We're going to say, not always be the most confident with it because we're not coming from our heart. We're coming from expectations or societal norms or things like that. And then if we're not speaking our truth and being comfortable with being seen who we are in our heart center, and the main, again, back to that heart center, middle of the 7, it's going to show in our power and how we express ourselves to the world. I talked a little bit earlier about that solar plexus slump. You see people walking around with their shoulders kind of slumped down versus a shoulders back. That solar plexus. If we don't feel confident and comfortable, back to the root, safe to express ourselves, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge to come from the heart center, speak to it, and express and show our authentic power. So that little bit of that trifecta I'm seeing there too.
Yeah. Well, I have a question. What do you intuitively get when you're seeing this trifecta? Like, what do you feel like the overall causes are for these blockages? Like, why now? Why is it coming up right now?
Yeah, it's a combination. There's oftentimes things in the heart that are unresolved. Sometimes I see little boxes. There's certain things that we say, I'm going to put this in a box and I'm just going to shove it over here and not deal with it because it hurts, it's hard, it's sensitive. But if we don't, and we don't work through that, we're not allowing our authentic self to shine through. There's also expectations. A lot of times when we want to express ourselves through the voice and roar, like a lion just roaring and really being loud. Oftentimes we were told, don't be so loud, be quiet, watch your tone. What about this? What about that? A lot of that is a factor, the societal norms, the expectations, things you might have been told when you were a child. That, when we do this chakra work, sometimes there's inner child work that when we were children that impacted our chakras, that still throws them off balance as an adult or wherever you are in your life.
Do you feel like there's more of a call right now or an energetic kind of shift that's happening for people who are drawn to see you to balance those. So somebody might say, well, I've had this blockage for years. Why is it coming up for me right now? Do you feel like there's a stronger purpose maybe for humanity, or maybe light workers kind of being called to finally step into who they are to uplift the world? That's what I was kind of getting from it, but I wanted to see if there is anything that you wanted to add to that.
Absolutely, there is. And I think part of that too is there's so much happening in the world. And human beings are sensitive, energetic beings. Even though we put on our armor and we do all of the protection and we do all the things that we need to do, we still absorb, we feel, and we should be able to feel. But we have to release, we have to clear. So, as that energetic hygiene I was talking about a moment ago, and really being able to clear out your personal blocks are going to allow you to show up your best authentic self for others. Whether you're a mother, a father, a sister, a brother, whomever, wherever you are in the world and what you're doing, clearing and having yourself at your highest well-being spiritually, mentally, physically. Because these block chakras, as we talked earlier and shared a little bit of your story, show up in a physical form. And it's oftentimes where we got to clear that out. And sometimes, it takes a minute and that's okay. But there's definitely a call. And I think in years past, it's not as been as welcome from a energetic light worker perspective. And now there's more holistic healing, well-being, and people saying, I need more. I want more for myself. And this is a way to be able to care for yourself.
It reminds me of like a soda bottle, and it's been shaken up, and the world, the energy, whatever. It's like, I have to release now. So I'm going to be called to find people, tools, resources, energy healing to help me do that. So I've got more questions that have just kind of cropped up that I want to ask you. And I want to revisit the connection to the solar plexus and the third eye that you mentioned as well. But I want to take a brief pause and we're going to dive into that. We're going to dive into signs of a blocked chakra and how often you should get energy healing when we come back after this quick break. As a professional psychic medium, I've done tens of thousands of readings, but I felt a call to move more fully into teaching intuition. But I still get so many requests about doing readings. So while I don't do readings anymore, I have brought in some very trusted colleagues who are now available for live 1-hour readings on Zoom. If you would like to book your psychic medium reading, go to messengerofspirit.com/appointments to see our available readers and schedule your Zoom reading today. Welcome back to the Spiritual and Ambitious podcast. I have Michelle Leigh here, and we are talking about blocked chakras. We're talking about some themes that Michelle's been seeing with her clients. And we're also going to be talking about some symptoms of how to know if you have a blocked chakra. But before we dive into it, I do want to pull some oracle cards because that's what we do here on the podcast. And I want to get Michelle's take on it as well. So I'm just asking our spirit guides what messages they may have for all of our listeners here today. And here's the card. Oh my God. I can't make this up. I just shuffled. If you're watching the video, you know I did. And we have the healing guide card. Focus on your health. Choose it above all else. And I love this because this really does represent energy healing with the light coming from the hands, which is just so beautiful. And I also pulled a card on divine timing. So, Michelle, do you have any thoughts, any intuitive messages on these cards?
So the healing guide, what came to mind too is a little bit of the root chakra there with that red color and that grounding in. But also the word that's coming to mind is worthiness. And we're all worthy. A lot of times we put healing and self-care on the back burner, and you don't need to, because just a reminder is that put your oxygen mask on first. So with getting that healing guide, working with someone you trust and you feel into to allow, and the light that shone through on that card just emanates the beauty of universal life force energy and how it's within all of us. And at our fingertips to really work with and connect into. And the divine timing, quite frankly, your healer, your teacher, your mentor, whomever you're connected to for healing will come in divine timing. I was wondering for the longest time, I found my mentor at the senior center, and it's amazing. So they come to us at the right time when we need them to.
I know that in the fast-paced world we live in, we want things now. And we need to just follow the journey and follow the path. This divine timing is bringing up a question I was going to say for later, but because we're in this moment, what is your answer when people say, Michelle, how often should I get a session?
How often you should get a session is really up to you and how you feel. If you are going to take some time in between a session, I recommend you're doing energetic hygiene of yourself, of checking in with your body and grounding in. I personally, even though as a Reiki practitioner and healer myself, I do my own personal hygiene on myself, but I also go to my own Reiki session every 3 to 4 weeks. So whatever you feel comfortable with and whatever makes sense for you and your lifestyle. But whatever you do, I ask that you honor yourself and you don't put it on the back burner. You're always checking in. How does my body feel? Where am I feeling out of alignment? And so forth. And honoring by booking that session.
Yeah, definitely. I think everyone's on their own healing journey. And sometimes we are working on that. Like, I need this every week. And sometimes it's every other week. And sometimes it's once a month. And I think that's really great that that divine timing card came in. But let's go back to some other things that you were mentioning. You were saying something about a connection between the solar plexus and the third eye.
Yes.
So can you share a little bit more about those blockages and what your messages are from spirit on that?
So the connection I see between the third eye and the solar plexus is if we look at it from what they govern, right? So your solar plexus, ever hear about the butterflies and that gut intuition? That's that solar plexus. But your intuition is coming from that knowing and that trust in the third eye. So they're connected. And I've seen where there's cords to the third eye and the solar plexus where they've needed to be cleared because they've been tight and bound where they should be able to be free and spin properly. And so really when you are trusting in with your intuition, connecting in, you're going to feel it in your solar plexus. You're going to feel that confidence that, yes, in my gut, I know to go forward with this. Or you're going to get that message from that intuition and you're going to get a message I personally got one day was very simple: wolf in sheep's clothing. And then my stomach started to spin and I went, oh, okay, I'm listening. And it was very simple. And if I wouldn't have paid attention to that connection of what came in as an intuitive message and then how my body and my gut and my stomach reacted, I probably would have missed it. And so that's where I've seen a little bit of those two connecting because you've got that kind of intuitive gut feeling you always hear in that third eye.
I can already feel, I think a lot of listeners are feeling a call to develop more of their intuition, their gut feelings, their knowings, the sight, the sounds that they're receiving from spirit and from past lives, from this lifetime, people telling us it's bad. I mean, there's so many different reasons why blocks form, and feeling the call to remove those cords that are kind of binding and holding us back in a sense. So if somebody's saying, well, how do I know what chakra's blocked? Well, I know that one thing is you can get a session and your practitioner can tell you which chakras are blocked, but maybe you want to know which chakras are blocked on your own. Another thing that I would say is developing your intuition, because I really feel like energy healing and intuition go hand in hand. However, what signs or symptoms may people experience if they have a blocked chakra from your perspective?
Right. From my perspective, you have a blocked chakra. Let's start with the root. Some examples. We haven't talked much about the root. So if you're walking outside, you're tripping a little bit, you're feeling clumsy, you're feeling a little off balance, a lot of times ground in, root in. And the best way to do that is to just put your feet, if you can, in the grass or just ground your boots in, really get outside in nature. So if you're kind of feeling off balance, ground in, root in. A sacral chakra block shows up in the way of feeling like, I just don't have any ideas. I'm not creative. I often hear people say, I'm not creative. You're so creative. And I'm thinking, yes, you are creative. Everyone is creative in their own way, just tapping into that sacral chakra and really allowing that to be nurtured. Heart is often blocked with how we receive love and love others, and also self-care. The upper chakras, third eye and crown, I've often felt myself if I'm a little like dizzy or off balance from an upper kind of head space, I'm often needing to, okay, am I connected? Am I connected to myself, my higher self, my intuition, my spirit guides? Just how we're feeling. It's really taking a moment to quiet, and you don't have to be a master meditator to do this. Quiet, listen, feel the body. Do I have tightness in my chest? The butterflies in my gut? Is my throat closing up as I talk about something? When we're talking sensitive stuff and your throat's starting to close up, there could be a block there. And if you're starting to get headaches in the third eye or vision, now these could all be other, of course, medical things that should be taken care of and looked at. But that's another way to really ground. And if you know I'm solid, I'm healthy, I'm feeling good. I was just feeling fine 5 minutes ago, but that person walked by and all of a sudden, poof, my blood pressure is up and this and that. Ground in, check in.
Absolutely. And to your point, even if we have a physical ailment, we still need to get that medical attention. Wherever we're having that problem in our body, we also need to look at that corresponding chakra. And that in itself is a symptom that that chakra has a block or that needs to be cleared and moved into alignment. And so the more that we can do that energetically, it's easier on our energy system to receive more healing. I remember having these ahas and epiphanies when I was learning about the chakras, and I would relate them to family members. I would say, oh my gosh, I know this person in my family, and he always had stomach issues, and that's the solar plexus, but he also had problems with ego and these other areas that chakra governs. Mm-hmm. So not only was it physical, there was a mental, emotional part of it as well. And so I'd go, aha, that makes a lot of sense. And so when we get into physical symptoms, psychological symptoms, it makes sense. Balancing that chakra is very helpful. And the fluidity of our energy and just bringing more things into alignment. I love that you gave everybody some tips as to how to help balance their chakras on their own. Just getting outside can help balance the root chakra and grounding into the earth and those things. I know you work with clients here at Messenger of Spirit. So could you share with everybody a little bit more about what a session with you looks like? I have had the privilege of having sessions with you, but I would love for everybody to hear from your perspective about what you do.
So the first part of a session with me is all about connection. So we connect in and we connect with how you're feeling, what you're looking to work on. And we talk about that for a minute and we kind of connect it. Are you feeling something physically? You're feeling something mentally, emotionally? Where is it at? What's going on? We pause and see how you're doing. We connect. And we'll talk a little bit about how the chakras will connect in. And what I'd like to do is I also like, if time permits, to take folks on a journey. And that's really where we dive into the chakras. We connect in with your spirit guides, the archangels, all of our Reiki masters, past, present, and future. The Reiki is flowing. I activate a Reiki session to be sending you distant Reiki. So you may feel a little bit of, I call it that buzz through the system. I had someone tell me one time that they felt that it was an energetic chakra waterfall just kind of flowing through. So we'll go through each of the chakras individually, and I'll take a moment to intuitively understand, how is that chakra? Is it overactive, underactive? I equate it to when you're at the carnival and you're on that ride that's like the tilt-a-whirl, and there's 7 carts. And how is each one? Is one really fast, really heavy? What's going on? And we really connect in. There's messages there too that will come through. Journeys can be very unique to what the individual needs, but we're going through each chakra, to clear, repair, and align and bring them into balance.
And you get messages from spirit, which I think everyone loves.
Absolutely.
And what I like about what you do is you're really tuning into the energy, seeing what's going on in the chakra, but you're also letting spirit give you messages about what you need to hear, what the client needs to hear to help unlock and release, and maybe even what caused this in the first place. And so it's such a beautiful thing that you do. And thank you for sharing your gift with everybody. For everybody out there that wants to book a session with Michelle, you can go to messengerofspirit.com/Michelle. We will put it in the show notes. And Michelle, is there any last message or anything that you want to share with everyone listening before we come to a close?
Forgot to mention too, in my sessions, I often work a lot of stones and crystals. So there's oftentimes a stone or crystal will call for you. And we also will pull an oracle card for any final messages of what spirit has. But what I would say is with the chakras at home, connect in with a stone. I have my stones here that I'm wearing blue from a throat chakra, a soft aqua for a throat chakra perspective to help. Just really connecting in with those colors. Affirmations for the chakras are amazing. Words are very, very powerful. So be mindful of how you talk to yourself. And that will, each chakra hears it. Just know when you leave this call, your chakra has ears, and how you speak to it and how you speak to yourself is very, very powerful.
Yeah. Chakras correspond with so many things, sounds, musical notes, colors. And so there's so much more to learn in depth there. And what we really appreciate you do is if someone is out there and it's like, I don't have time to learn about all this, well, you can work with them to help them balance, which is really, really important with what we need right now. And the more that we can move into alignment, the more we can walk in purpose. And our wish for everyone is to walk in authenticity and really live their purpose in an abundant way. So thank you so much, Michelle, for being here on the podcast and being here on our team as well. Again, if you are listening and you want to book a session with Michelle, there's a link in the show notes, or just go to messengerofspirit.com/Michelle. So thank you again, Michelle, for being here. And I will be back next week with a brand new episode. But until then, here's to staying spiritual and ambitious. Thanks so much for listening to this episode. And if you loved it, would you please share it with a friend? I would also love your review. And a reminder to subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can find me at messengerofspirit.com, and you can take the 4 Intuitive Languages quiz and find show notes there too. If you want to connect on YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, you can find me at Messenger of Spirit. I'll meet you right here next week. Here's to staying spiritual and ambitious.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM. Women's voices amplified.